antics. So that's what I think about that conversation. And I know that there might be folks that still want to comment particularly on how to have the conversation, but I think the ball now rests with, deciding upon what it is that has been laid bare. It is a matter of the choices that have to be made. Then I was sent a message about that issue. Yanambo discussing na my sister Evelyn, yeku question opposition, yeku question vanhu veZANU-PF on things that we all know are wrong. And it was again to the example that I used. Do you think that these people are inherently bad? No, I don't think ZANU-PF, particularly the supporters themselves, are inherently bad. I think that there is an elite group that has inherited bad and has decided to continue being bad. So there's a distinction there. I think there are people that they know what needs to be done, and they evidently have the capacity to do the right thing because they can do the wrong thing correctly and effectively. An example is CAB 3. CAB 3 has been executed over a period of 5 years systematically, which means there was scenario planning, there was resource mobilization, there was risk assessment, all that goes into a proper plan. And they put in every intelligence into making sure that we get to the position that we are with CAB 3. They could have easily done the same thing when it comes to certain aspects of the economy, when it comes to the health sector, when it comes to social welfare. They chose not to. So this is why I believe that there's a certain group of them that is inherited bad and has chosen to say that is their mantra for whatever economic benefit it gives them or whatever human benefit they get from doing that. It is an unfortunate thing that there are also supporters who support from a position of cohesion, from a position of force rather, because they see no option. And this is why we have these conversations, or at least why I participate in the conversations, that there is an option. You do not have to support because you believe that is the only way that survival is going to come. It has been made the main message, the only way to survive or to have some resemblance of normalcy or some decent living, you have to pay homage to this institution called ZANU-PF. But the reason why we speak is to say there is an alternative. The alternative does require some activation energy, sacrifices of sorts, but there is an alternative. There can be truly a better Zimbabwe that does not depend on us subjugating us to the whims of those that do not rule with the people in mind, right? So there's that aspect. I thought it was important to respond to that message that was sent. And to emphasize, Kuti, you have to remember some of them, the way that they are going to answer that question, the questions, is always so that you cannot prove the point that you're trying to prove. So it is best for you to just communicate the point that you want to communicate. And the same applies to me. Munwe, ZANU-PF, if they were to ask me a question, although in Nini because of a certain religious background, a Christian background, I will not be able to tell them a blatant lie. But if they were to ask me the same question with the hope to trap me into supporting their point, I would not present it in the way that they want. So it is a normal strategy. So that's why I spoke about that specifically to my sister. So I did get a message. The person went at length to explain their position. So I thought it was only fair for them to respond, for me to respond to that particular one.
Okay.
Yeah. So Scotty, thank you. But I think you have things to think about. The people that play with you as co-hosts have things to think about, such as myself. Then the participants themselves have things to think about. But I think the conversation has reached its natural end. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to give only, Mangis has been waiting for quite long, and Kingston, then obviously we close the subject. We're all going to reflect. We're all not perfect anyway, so we're all going to reflect on this one. So, yeah, Mangis come through, then we go to Kingston, then we go back to our topic of the day.
Okay, co-host. Yeah, maybe if you want someone to close, I wanted to go straight to the topic of the day. So Maybe if it's about, if there are other people want to submit pertaining to what you
Okay.
are wrapping up, they can go ahead. Then I will
Okay.
come first when you go back to the topic
Okay,
of
my
the day.
leader. Yeah. Kingston.
Masbabwen, good afternoon, good morning, all that stuff. My brother Scotty, it's up to you how you run your space, but all of us, people shouldn't abuse. It's up to you. Whether people, it's up to you who run your space. But I want to address something to Dr. Dadini. Dr. Dadini, I listened to one of your audio, one of your audio, and I looked for one of your paper, which you talk about community minerals, Dr. Dadini. One of your community minerals requests that Zimbabwe has to have laws around community minerals. I just want to correct you, Dr. Dadini. Dr. Dadini, maybe you know Dr. What's her name? Sheila Kama. Sheila Kama worked for De Beers. She was in Botswana. She's one of, I've known Sheila Kama for years. She implemented that program in Botswana, Sheila Kama. She implemented that program in Botswana. And she left De Beers and went to work for African Union. I just want to let you know, Sheila Kama implemented, they are aware, SADC and African Union. Sheila went and implemented the same program to all of these African countries to follow a guideline. Everybody has those laws. Only that Zimbabwe and some of these African countries do not follow and all that stuff. After that, Sheila Kama and maybe you know Dr. Arakan, you know Dr. Arakan and Sheila Kama, they went and worked for the World Bank, those women. And I just want to bring it up, speed up to you, to correct you on that. That law exists in all of the African countries, only that our leaders do not follow us in all that stuff. Sheila Kama and Dr. Arakana left and worked for the World Bank. And Sheila Kama, Arakana, they went and worked for the World Bank. The problem we have, this instrument, this financial, like Vana World Bank, Vana IMF, and United Nations, and all of that, and what do you call it, African Development Bank. If you read that structure of those organizations, like I've told you, what's the name? African Development Bank is just a micro years, no breakboard. It falls under some of those organizations. You know why Sheila Kama and Arakana, they went and worked for the World Bank and all that stuff. They were fighting for us African countries because some of the things were being implemented, the financial structures, the way they were implemented, and to address this issue. Guess what? They got rid of them. They did not renew their contract because of these minerals, because some of them, they are being mortgages for some of these loans and all that stuff. I just want to correct one of your documents which you wrote. And Sheila Kama, if you want Sheila Kama and Dr. Arakana, I can bring them to you and we can have that conversation. That's why they did not renew their contract with with the World Bank, because of they were fighting for some of these rights so that things are run right and everything. So some of these countries, because they mortgage some of our minerals before that. Most of these laws here in Africa, they do exist. Zimbabwe, Aripo Maloza, and all that stuff. Only that they're being abused. Nobody wants Panama law and all that stuff. I'll close my case. Zimbabweans, at no currency, yes, dollar belongs to my Americans. We can run with Unzaima investor, Unzaichi. There is zero. Nothing is working. And people are going to be writing my documents and all that stuff. Please, Kunema filters will implement, will follow up Nema document. Not just to write a document in AI and all that stuff. We'll filter those things. Nema software which are going to do that. But I just want to to let you know, one of your documents, I listened, it was an audio, it was turned into an audio, and I read the thing. My laws, I have been existing for the last 15, I think 20 years or so. Sheila Kama went and implemented these laws, only that they are being abused by our slave masters, our leaders who are not following. And those laws, Aripok Zimbabwe, my goal that they're supposed to benefit community and all that stuff, only that they are being abused and all that stuff. I just want to correct you on that document. And that there's a proof. When Sheila Kam, Nana Dr. Arakan, they can tell you that's what they were fighting for. That's why they did not renew their contract and they left. They left. Just want to correct you on that.
Why don't you mention I'm the one who was playing the Substack and then you accused
No, I
me?
went and looked. I went and looked for the document.
Yeah, but I told you it's that Dr. Tadini
Yeah, I
Substack
went and
and
looked
you
for
were
the document. I
attacking
went
me.
and downloaded. I went and downloaded the document and I read it.
Okay.
And my sister, I wanted you to keep you out of it. I didn't want to cause some converse in here.
It's okay,
Yeah,
Carol.
I didn't want to, I went and looked and listened. I went and downloaded it. I
Okay.
didn't want to
Okay.
put you in
Yeah,
here.
because
Thank
we play them every day now,
you.
all the different ones. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
But
that's fine.
why do you think it was listened from what you were playing and you don't think she went down and read her own stuff?
She didn't read. If she had read, she would have understood what that article was talking
Let me
about.
explain something to you, my brother.
This
I know
idea
you,
of
it's all
claiming
about that. I
credit
went and
everywhere.
looked for the document. It's there. I downloaded Dr. Tadini's document. I downloaded the document. Don't
Yeah,
say I did
no,
not read.
the
Do
document
not
is,
tell me I did not read.
yeah,
I did read that. And it's for Dr. Tadini to respond. Stop attacking me, guys. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking to Dr. Tadini. Thank you.
Iwe own
yeah,
gap
no.
tanga unyorawo zvako kaiwe tiverenge own gap ndaona chako chawanyora kaiwe own gap icha
Yeah,
ungoti
so
chazeti.
sorry, Ningrin. It takes it. Let's just to get this one done. No, my sister, thank you very much for the feedback. Lisa, thank you very much. And on that, I know that people are engaging with the content. Then there would not have been any, backlash for anyone critiquing however they think. If I'm taking anything from your criticism, is that what is being suggested is there, but it's not being implemented, which would still mean that what is written is not wrong. I think whilst I take your criticism positively, I would say I think we should cease to approach our problems as if they are positions for us to fight, rather they are positions for us to come together. So I'll take your comment to mean that, well, there is this framework that exists for the whole of Africa, and this framework is not being implemented in Zimbabwe. And if this framework is not being implemented in Zimbabwe, why is it not being implemented? You see, and if it were implemented, how would it benefit us? Which is an argument that the document still makes, which is where On Guard was going to. So it might be a portion that you might have missed, which happens whenever someone is reading. I can read a book and you can tell me something. We used to do that in literature review. In Form 2, pataita takadini pa.
Practical criticism.
Yeah, yeah.
Dr. Tadini, I'll inbox you the document from the UN. Don't worry about it. From the AU. I'll send it to you, Dr. Tadini. It's
Yes,
not a problem.
thank you.
Thank you very
Then
much.
I would consume you. Then I'll consume it also. I would miss something. Yeah, so I was going to say it's an example. Tese tinogona kuverenga bhuku rinonzi takadini. Then teacher anozotiti tiudzei pamunonzwisisa and the lessons come differently because sometimes we miss certain things. So the articles are not for us to find conflict. They are for us to further scrutinize our government, and they are not all inclusive. So you might be right that there are certain portions that I would have left out. And then if you go and comment underneath it to say, this is how I'm perceiving it, you allow the conversation to grow, or you participate in the same space. I saw the invite, Lisa, but Nandri ko Alaska and that's 3 a.m. So asindakaudzwa na dandaro kuti we're reading this. I wanted to participate, but it was 3 a.m. Plus mnozi hakuna mai masaya. Saka mai masaya vane rules and regulations. Tiri kutongeka. So I told him that I would participate in another time. But that's the point. The point is we bring it out there. Then the people know what is happening, how its government is deciding, where it needs to be corrected, where it needs to be contested with, and where it has blatantly chosen to say it's not going to respect any rules, but it's going to serve the purpose of a few. So I think that's very, and thank you for bringing it up. It's unfortunate we cannot continue in diving in that document particularly because it was not what the host set out to do, and people won't have the full context of what we're discussing unless we brought the document up, unless we first went through the context. But for people who are interested, it's about the rules around our minerals, and the changes that have happened, and of course the investors, in quotes, the Chinese. That's what the document is talking about. But it hasn't been introduced sufficiently for all 120 of us to benefit from the conversation. If I go straight into it, my sister, so I'm not running away from it. I'll respond to some of the things you share and I'll say, okay, then I'll go back to that particular document and I'll add a comment underneath it. This is what I was addressed with my sister. This is where I see she was coming from. I'll definitely do that so that everyone else benefits. For someone who might wonder, it's like, this is something that I touch on. Like I mentioned, issue yes, statutory instrument 101. muna 12 June, the government yeZimbabwe yakati kuda 75% yemacompany ese ari telecoms, which means Econet, Liquid, you name it, whatever you can think of that's telecom, kuti aonwe nema-indigenous as a move indigenization, or what you call nationalization of resources, nationalism, resource nationalism. Effectively, they've been following it in different areas, including the document that you're talking about, my sister, which was particularly mineral beneficiation and mineral resource nationalization. So it's the same thing that they did Muswa 12 Nema companies, but Muswa Nezuro. So 3 weeks after that, to the 75%, Baga reverse rules SNA statutory instrument 111, because they hadn't anticipated certain things and certain reactions from the international community and also from the tech industry as a whole and how it is connected. And that exposes some of this blatant disregard of not only national laws, but international laws that our government engages in. And it has consequences not just to the government, but to the country as a whole. Especially ipapo, pane issue yekuti the resource inconsistency, that is the policy inconsistency, that comes into question. So that one was a very bad one, and it's a bad one for all of us. It's a very bad one, not just for the government, but how the rest of the country is then perceived. So thank you for bringing it up. Hopefully,
Dr. Dadin, with your indulgence.
I appreciate Dr. Tadine. I'll send you the document from the AU. Thank you.
Oh, Dr. Tadine, yeah.
Okay, we need to move to
But
Mangit now.
I
He's
just
been
wanted to
waiting.
ask you, Dr. Dadini, a pointed question. That you as a government in waiting, do you have a policy to respond to that offers Zimbabweans a best alternative? You don't have to answer now, or you don't have to have the policy now, but I would encourage you to craft one as a political party and say, this is the alternative.
Yeah, so if you, just a quick one, and then we move back to what we're talking about. If you look at how these are written, they usually talk about what's happening, and then they point out to exactly the policy alternative and why that policy alternative, supposedly, before it has been put into practice, is a better trajectory to take.
Is that
and of course, we cannot put
is that your position or the party position?
So I was going to go to that.
Okay,
It's
thanks, sorry.
explicitly expresses where it is my thought, and then where it is a thought that is shared within different alternative governments or institutions that want to govern eventually. So those are the two distinctions that it makes.
No, I was asking
the reason why
for your own political party that you are a leader in, is because I think it's good feedback in my view that you would also benefit from having. This is what we would do. This is what should be done.
Takes into account that there's both. If you read it, you notice that there's both. There's one that's coming specifically from an institution, and there's one that's coming from just maybe experts. So it's both. But yeah, Scotty, please return us to where we
were. Scotty, I just wanted to give an announcement for those who missed the presentation yesterday. I've posted a screen recording, but I also have an audio version for those who would want to share in WhatsApp groups, for those who listen to it and to know how important it is. Please inbox me, I'll send you the file so that we can share it to other people who might not be on X or might have missed the space last night.
Okay. Come on, Gab. Yeah. Dr. Adin, I'm just gonna go somewhere now. Are you gonna continue until what time?
Yeah, I think I can add an hour more, an hour more.
Okay, so yeah, we hand over the space to you. Then I think Mangis has been waiting. There's also a new speaker, Infinite.
But Scott, if you bring the topic up there, you need to bring that.
Yeah,
on that
it's
topic
always welcome that where is even the listeners now we can.
Yeah, I recommend that because at least you calibrate thoughts and because at least that one is a structured conversation, needs to be guided by the constitution and somebody who actually understands the implications.
Yeah, I got that. I will send him the invite. Obviously, he will come. Thank you. Over to you, Dr. Adin and Mangis. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Dr. Dadini, can I proceed?
Yes.
100.
Okay, my submission is not much long, just a glimpse of it. Yeah, when it comes to Cape 3, a lot of things, a lot of people do not quite see the implication, but the simple implication is that when you centralize power into an individual, you see, and create a king president kind of sort, when you do it, you be thinking that maybe you are sustaining your power and so forth, which is schema zvinhu in the like. But zvinoitika ndezvekuti you make the contestation a contestation of a position, because right now situation inenge apa ground it's no longer about us discussing about the constitution or talking about elections and so forth. Some people would say kuti we prepare for elections 2030. Hapana a guarantee yekuti kunoitwa maelection 2030 or kana akaitwa anenge akamira sei. But when it comes to the revolution, chinenge changouya papa ndechokuunderstand kuti the whole contest has been centralized into an individual, so that the contest is no longer a question yekuti ngachinetsa kuti tombofunga kuti ma-MP makansela zvema-MP nemakansela zvinotozouya pane imwe new phase of Zimbabwe. Iko zvinezvi zvinhu zviripo paground ndezvongoti tangodhira nemunhu wani chete Emerson, vamwe vese vanomuteera, ava vese vanenge vachimusapota nevanenge vachingotaura zvanenge vachitaura, vazhinji vacho vamwe anongori mastooges, vamwe varakashi vanenge vachitobhadhagwa mari. They survive on that. Ndosaka tichigara tinavo vamwe pamaspace up 24/7 vanosustainwa nekurakasha nekunge vachiita sustain that thought. But the only thing chatofanira kuzi understand is zvinhu zvaitwa easier, the burden has been made easier, because we are no longer fighting ZANU-PF, we are no longer fighting all that kind of stuff. Tinongodhira na dynasty president chete. Saka the struggle and focus of the revolution should be to deal with that individual. Once we deal with that individual, vese vanosara vachitaura zvana central committee politburo varakashi chichi vese once we make sure we deal with that individual chete, vese ava they will just fall maparasites anenge ari ngori akaunganirai achingoti shumba murambo ari pagaro, tikadhira negaro racho iroro in the terms of the revolution we are women right. Nyaya yacho inenge yatopera, nyaya inoperera pamunhu wani. Saka aita zvakanaka, anogona kufunga takangwara whatever zvaita achitenderana nechi, but isusu kwatiri vamwe tatoti the game has been made easier because now the target is simply one individual. When you deal with that individual, you have dealt with the rest of every other problem. Zvimwe zvese zvikomana zvana tungwarara vana tagwirei vana Scott we don't talk of that. Madhara mamwe ari mucentral committee politburo, that just dead wood nesenate yacho neparliament, that's dead wood. Tangoziva chete kuti the struggle is focused on dealing with one individual. Saka ndo pane focus of the revolution. To those who think and to those who are wise enough, they must simply know kuti the target is now on one individual. When we deal with that one individual, the rest is history. So I drop down, I get into work, and go to submit my thought for today. Maybe I'll be more available from weekend onwards. Thank you.
Yeah. Just checking on the. Can you hear me? We get the network challenge for now. Mercy.
No, loud and clear. I can hear you.
All right, perfect. I was just checking. Okay. All right. Before I go,
haven't got much, so I'm gonna follow up. Has Zimbabwe's democracy changed forever? Yeah, it has. But does it bring opportunities and threats? Definitely. But nothing is ever stagnant. Our democracy has always been changing. Every period that we go through since 1980 has been a change forever. 2013 was also a change forever. It doesn't mean a forever means there won't be more changes afterwards. But has it changed? Yes. It has exposed the vulnerability of Zimbabwean people to power. It has again brought the question of who must have the power. And I think we had a false sense of security in that those who free us will use power responsibly. And then we went into a lack of responsibility as citizens ourselves, abdicated that duty and gave it to who we thought should be responsible adults within governance. Even as the infrastructure that was supposed to maintain that democracy was up to us to keep running. We were not observant when that was being killed. So democracy doesn't exist dependent on the pillars of power, as in the judiciary, the legislature, and the like. It is reliant on the civil society organizations in their multitude with different causes, constantly keeping abreast with what is happening and what is changing, forcing the change that is progressive, resisting the one that is regressive. In our situation, we sort of became more political than we were interested in constantly remaining free. So the civil society organizations, when they came with causes and tried to push for progressive policies, progressive civil society action, we sort of neglected that. It became their issue and not our issue. Eventually, they ended up being, just as we have created civil society to be NGOs, they started dealing with how we cope with the repression, with the oppression on a day-to-day basic needs. That's what they ended up dealing with. So the power or the ruler was not kept at bay. It just kept increasing in the amount of power that he got by turning all those pillars of power that we had set up in our constitution to be the responsible adults for managing our welfare, our resources, and our outcomes and future. So it has changed. It has changed significantly. But the biggest change for me is what it has revealed. It has revealed a citizenry that is incapacitated, a citizenry that is not conscientized, a citizenry that is helpless, and a citizenry that lacks the skills and the tools to organize, or actually the recognition that there is a need to be organized in order for you to then mobilize yourself to the actions that we all know we need to do. So it has changed drastically. And if we do not improve on those civic duties, obligations, responsibilities, um, we are now placed to end up being the countries that we say are oppressed or are under oppression. Unfortunately, the ones that come to mind, we are often associate them with economic progress. In our case, we don't have the leverage to end up with an oppressed people, but with some economy that moves. So we are not going to be China, for example. One, we do not have the human resources to the magnitude that China does have. Um, we don't actually have the programs that have been implemented by the oppressive regime to actually subjugate those people to a labor system that will actually produce what China does. Our government is incompetent when it comes to those kind of things. They emulate the Chinas of this world, but they do not do 98% of the oppressive things that those countries have done in order to at least have the semblance of economies that are now said to be more progressive than others that are democratic. So our case is going to be an oppressed people who are symbolized by poverty, displacement, and a continued attempt to move away from their country to find somewhere to live, unless the people have a reawakening, a reawakening that um, needs them to really roll up their sleeves, pull up their socks, and drag themselves by the belly if they can't walk. Uh, those who can walk should lift the others on their shoulders and walk the 2 centimeters that they can with them on their backs. It will take a lot of people who are actually not soft. I think the strategy that we've been attempting to use is what free people use, where there's a lot of begging, a lot of trying to be nice to each other. I think we are going to either end up having a radical who do not take um, uh, um, bullshit, sorry, Scotty, if they are convinced that the method that they know works will work, they must go off and do it. Just like in the past, it's you go to the ones who will capacitate you. You don't go to the ones that energize you. And I think we've been seeking permission from the wrong pool of people. It is time for those who are radical about removing oppression to actually venture a bit, maybe outside of the box. And I think this kumbaya that we've been attempting to do doesn't work. Um, there are serious conversations that we have to have, and I don't think they are going to be nice. We have to go through the storming stage. Uh, Tisanzwisisane, so that the ones that go on the left go on the left, the ones that go on the right go on the right, and the ones that want to push through in spite of will have to do that without the interference of the naysayers, the pussyfooters, the ones that like to stay comfortable in their game. So it's unfortunate. It's also a time for opportunists. That's the sad part. There are those who see opportunities in this new type of whatever oppression that we have. There's always room for those type of people who benefit from oppressive systems, not only the Zimbabweans, the external world. I think the politics has changed now. You look at American foreign policy now, is work with whoever you want to work with as long as American interests. I don't care how you treat your own people as long as I can do business with you. So we are past that era now where we are going to look for those who only work with democratic states. The resources are very scarce in the world right now. And so it has changed. That's what I wanted to say. It has changed. But I think we are also going to have to change. We are going to have a social revolution. I think we've been stagnant in a socialized state where we think like free people when we should be thinking like oppressed people. There are a lot of comfort zones that we like to have, especially even in discourse. We like to have debates as if we are in Toastmasters. Our debates are not synonymous with oppressed people. They are as if we are sitting in a debate club talking about another country where we just are opinionated but not affected. So I think a new leadership should come that will stir the pot, and the strong men will rise, the strong women will rise, and the weak will fall. And it should be in revolutions that what should happen. Some people should shut up, and some people must speak, and some people must become the torchbearers, and some people must follow. But now we were trying to please everybody. It can't happen. Revolution doesn't work like that. Um, we can't think like privileged people. We are oppressed people. So that's what I wanted to contribute. But yeah, democracy has changed, but we can also change it to the next level. We can emerge out of this take the opportunity. We have hit rock bottom. The only way is up.
Oh my God, my God. Thank you, Mercy. Thank you.
Yeah, so interesting views that you're sharing, Masi. I resonate with most of the things that you're saying, except maybe in the sense that I like the definition, the title that Scotty put, because it allows me to make the argument that what democracy are you talking about? Because Zimbabwe never had a democracy. But and I'll just do that, but understanding what you are saying and agreeing with the context of what you're saying, because I'll then point out that Zimbabwe has never actually had democracy in the sense of democracy, unless we are bastardizing the word democracy. So if we're being true to the Zimbabwean situation, is that it has been an electoral authoritarian regime. That's what we've had. We have an authoritarian that pretends to have elections once in a while, competitive authoritarianism, if you would like to put it that way. That's what we have, right? And has that changed? Yes, it has changed. It is moving away from the electoral aspect and going more towards just being an authoritarian by limiting the number of times that it has to pretend to be a democracy. So let's take just one clause of Bill 3. Bill 3 is saying that you can no longer vote directly for the president. So effectively, what that does is it is limiting the pretense, the number of times that you have to pretend, and who has to be playing to that pretense. So originally, on every general election, we all had to pretend that we were voting for a president, and we all had to pretend that that vote is going to count. Then we also had to vote for an MP and pretend that the vote is going to be accurately tabulated and recorded. Now the new bill changes that system to say we no longer want the other part of that pretense. Let's remove the presidential part of the pretense and let's minimize that to a group of 400 individuals. And then the rest of the pretense in terms of the MPs, we can keep that going. I call it a pretense because of the fundamentals that have been bastardized that make it not an election in the meaning or the fair sense of the word election, which is what people talk about when they're talking about the delimitation process, etc. And then they're also talking about tabulation process when it comes to ZEC, etc. You see, so effectively, what is changed is the extent to which the authoritarian wants to be an authoritarian. They are moving more towards being openly authoritarian, which is a direct challenge to the people to ask you, what are you going to do about it? Now, whether this change is permanent or not depends on how the people of Zimbabwe act. Remember, this is just ink that has been put on paper. This ink can easily be put tomorrow to say something else. The reason why this conversation, I can give an example, companies, a telecom, musi wa12 June, wakabva warivheswa mutemo uchinyorerwa umwe mutemo musi wa6 July, about 3 weeks apart, is to show you that any mutemo is only as powerful or as meaningful as the people in that society agree to respect it. If the people of Zimbabwe wake up tomorrow and say, Bill 3 rasainwa but hausi mutemo kwatiri, and we are not going to play ball, and they register their displeasure with that in terms of that position sufficient, zvakaitika kune statutory instrument 101 ndozvinongoitika futi kune bill 3. It will be repealed. So here the task is, do the people of Zimbabwe sufficiently want to participate in their own emancipation to a point whereby they can cause the same amount of pressure yakakozwa nema-investors, yakakozwa nema-economic players, yakaita kuti mutemo we75% wanga uripo musi wa12 June, wakaiswa musi weFriday musi wa12 June, umuke musi weMonday musi wa6 July, wakunzi aiwa paipai taitamba here, ngatibvisei zvese tarivhesa tadzokera pakatiri. Ndo question iripo. This bill was signed yesterday. if the citizens of Zimbabwe organize themselves sufficiently and apply pressure to ZANU-PF, in less than 3 weeks, they could have the bill removed or the process simply nullified. If you apply sufficient pressure, the Constitutional Court is the one that will call you, the citizens, to say, no, as the Constitutional Court, we think that there was something that was wrong with the process. So we are saying Bill 3 is off. And they will say that so that they can save the government. That's what they will do. But the question now is, do you have sufficient participation from the citizens that can cause that? Do you have a willing leadership? Which is when you are talking about who should speak and who should be quiet and what method should be pursued. I think that is where the crux of the matter is. Do you have a leadership that is true to the fact that they want to resist this? And do you also have a leadership that is willing to do the confrontation to a point whereby it is no longer kumbaya, it is no longer massaging each other? The real question is the Zimbabwean challenge. What ZANU-PF has done with Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3 is to tell every Zimbabwean that we do not care what the law says, but we can write laws for you. And what are you going to do about it? Then also tell them that we have power that can make every single decision we make. And the power is we can move people on the ground, we can move money on the ground, and maybe we can even move reports because we fear them. They have shot people dead, right? That's why we fear them. So that's what they've effectively told you. The bill itself specifically has the notwithstanding clause, which is essentially telling you that Nabasa Makawirani in 2013 was notwithstanding Muchishona, vanoziva chindevele vachazondudzawo, notwithstanding Muchishona zvinoreva kuti zvisinei nekuti apa makataura zvakati, irregardless of the fact that this is the position that the Zimbabwean people hold, this is what is declared by the Zimbabwean people, we are still going to go ahead and benefit from this. That is where we are, right? Now, I have put before people before, Kuti, is it a time, Yekuti, muite arm twist your leaders to act in certain ways, or is it a time, Yekuti, muite bring about new leadership? And honestly, I agree with you. I think it is a time for a radical approach, one that is not anchored merely in reactive speeches, that is not anchored in reactive writing, but that is grounded in actual action that will, to an extent, put ZANU-PF on the defensive or have them thinking about going onto the defensive. And that might actually include things that would be interpreted as being unlawful, and which I feel like people, Zimbabweans, should never fear things that can be interpreted as being unlawful, because ZANU-PF has a tendency of interpreting the law as in their own favor. So the most recent example would be the students that have been arrested for expressing a position. They will be arrested, right? That shows you how they are supposed to be fighting. But it then comes to them and the bill. The Constitution says you cannot do this without a referendum. You cannot do this without this percentage and a referendum. But they do not listen to that, right? So isusu tikaramba tichiitya kuti law inozointerpretwa sei nevanhu vanointerpreta law zviri suiting to themselves, we are always going